everyone. Welcome to Rancho Los Cerritos' November Creation Station, which we're calling Unbelievably Autumn. And as you might be able to tell from the name, our crafts are celebrating the month of autumn or fall. And here in Southern California, we don't have a big change in seasons, so it's not quite like in other parts of the country or other parts of the world where the weather really changes and the leaves all change color. But our weather gets a little bit cooler. You might start pulling out your sweaters. So we're going to celebrate that season with some crafts that involve leaves. And one place where the leaves actually change colors a lot is on the East Coast of the United States. And the East Coast is important to the rancho because the first people living at Rancho Los Cerritos, or who owned it, were actually from the East Coast. So John Temple, who had the house built in 1844, was from Massachusetts. And the Bixby family, who lived there after him in the Victorian era, were from Maine. So they were all from the East Coast, where they would have seen these big changes in seasons and the leaves changing and then snow in the winter. But they all ended up here in Southern California, where the weather would have been what we're used to today. So even though we don't get those big changes in leaves, we're still going to use leaves to create some crafts today. So that's one of the main materials that you need to make these two art projects. And for one of them, you'll be able to actually see the leaves themselves. So I tried to get leaves that do have a little bit of color difference. So not as many reds and oranges, but I did have some that were yellow. And then most of the leaves around me were green. So I tried to get different shades of green, so those will look a little bit different. And for the other craft, you won't be able to see the color of the leaves, but you'll be able to see the shape. So I also tried to get different shapes of leaves and different sizes too, so that those shapes will look different on that piece of art. And the main thing to keep in mind when you're getting your leaves is that you need to have permission to get them. So even if it's coming from your own yard at your house, make sure that your adults are all okay with you getting those leaves. And definitely if you're getting them from somewhere else, whether it's someone else's house or if you're walking in your neighborhood and you see some leaves, make sure that it's okay with whoever owns the place where those leaves are growing. It's okay with them that you have those. So I've got a collection of leaves here. I'll also need some paper, and I have a mix. So if you have just printer paper like this, that will be fine. You'll need a couple sheets plus some scratch paper as well. But if you do have some thicker paper like cardstock like this, or like watercolor paper, that those work a little better if you have them, if you're using a liquid glue to glue leaves on, just because that can get kind of soak into the paper. But if you only have the printer paper, that's totally fine. You'll just want to leave it to dry somewhere and not touch it too much until it's all the way dry. So I've got the paper and the leaves, and then you'll also need some glue. So I have liquid glue for gluing the leaves on. I also have a glue stick for gluing paper to paper, and then some tape, which is not necessary, but it's pretty useful, so I like to have this. We'll do in the second craft. And then you'll also need some kind of way to add color, so either markers or colored pencils, or you could use crayons or even paint. Whatever you have at your house or in your home that you like to use, go ahead and use that. So I have markers and colored pencils here, but it's really up to you. So the very first thing we're going to do using leaves is to make a portrait. And so a portrait is like a painting or drawing of a person. And what I'm going to do is a self-portrait. So it's going to be a drawing or a piece of art of me. And I'm using the leaves in that to make the hair. So I'm going to use this piece of paper. Put those out of the way. So I've got my paper, and this is going to be where I'm going to create the portrait. So the first thing that I'm going to do is draw my face and body, so the parts that will be drawn in. And I'm just going to use a colored pencil. If you want to sketch it out first with a regular pencil so that you can erase anything you don't want, that's totally fine too. I'm just going to start, maybe I'll start with a brown, light brown color. So I'm going to do sort of like a long U shape that will be my head. So I'm going to put the leaves at the top, so I don't really need the top of that like oval, but it will be this kind of bottom part. So I've got that. Here we go. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is my face down. Here's my chin. And so now I want to add my neck. So my neck is not quite as wide as the whole face. So I'll start a little bit in on that U and then go down and then sort of swing out for the shoulders. So down and out, down and out. So now I've got this shape here. So that kind of looks like a face and a neck and shoulders. And so I'm going to be using the leaves to make the hair. But you could also, if you have enough leaves, you could use it to make your clothes or jewelry too, or whoever you're drawing, you could do theirs. So I think before I start gluing the leaves on, I'm just going to color this in so that it looks how I want it to, and then I'll glue the leaves on as the very last thing. But one thing you can do if you want it to have a little bit more like 3 dimensions is take a scratch piece of paper to make a 3-dimensional nose. So you need just a strip of paper that's about as wide as you want the nose to be on your drawing. So I'm just gonna make mine like as wide as like my pinky probably, and cut a strip. And it's okay if it's not totally straight. So here's my strip. And I'm going to first bend it once, like this, to make like an L, and then I'm gonna bend it up. And so this is going to be against the paper, and then this is gonna be sticking out from the paper. And so as big as you want the nose to be, if you want a really long nose, you can fold it back up here. I just want a kind of medium-sized nose. So I'm gonna fold it like that. So now it's like the 3 sides of a rectangle, but instead of making a rectangle, we're gonna do a triangle and glue this over here. And then that will get glued onto the paper. So let me show you what that will look like. So first, I'm going to glue this. And the only thing that I'm trying to make sure is that this is making like a straight corner, and then this one is slanted. I think that's pretty good. And then I'm going to trim the extra. So now I've got this kind of triangle shape, which perhaps you can see. And then I'm going to take that flat side that I cut or folded first and tape that onto the paper where I want the nose to be. So you can sort of see now it's got this nose pointing out. You can see from the shadow it's 3-dimensional, so the nose is like coming out at you. So that'll add a little bit more dimension, a little bit more like layers. And then once you're adding leaves on, that will add some texture and layers too. So right now I'm just going to finish coloring my face in, and then I'll come back once I have that and then show you how to glue the leaves on. All right, I'm back, and here is my hairless so far self-portrait. So I kind of did, this is like the outfit I'm wearing right now. Added eyes and eyebrows, ears, which might get covered up, but I've got ears under here even though you can't see them anyway. And then one thing to note is, if you haven't done it already, it's easier to color the nose before you glue it on and make the shape, but I was still able to kind of color it even though it's already on there. So now my self-portrait is ready for some hair, and I'm going to use these leaves, and I'm going to do a little bit of a mix between the more yellows and the greens, just because this one is going to show the color. So I want to do, even though my hair obviously isn't green, we're going to make leaf hair. You can start just kind of like laying out your leaves. So probably start like this. Turn this around. These are my bigger leaves, so I'm gonna have them like on the bottom with yellowish, and then I'll just kind of keep working my way up. So once you've decided where you want them, and you might need to like trim little stems off if you don't want those, then just glue them down. And so for this I'm using a liquid glue. You could also use like a glue gun, but you want to make sure that you have someone helping you if you're going to use a glue gun, just because those do get really hot and it's easy to burn yourself. But my glue is coming out very slowly. Right. So I'm gonna line this up kind of where I want it. And then hold down. So you might need to just kind of put some pressure. So touch this, kind of press down on it so that it's really getting squished in there, so that that leaf and the glue and the paper are all getting squeezed together so that it'll really stick. So there we go. There's my first little bit of hair. And then I'm just going to keep doing this until I have filled up my whole head of hair. And what I think I'm going to do is kind of go do like a yellow layer and then a green maybe, and then another yellow. So again, it'll kind of like mix those colors. It doesn't have to look the exact color of your hair. And for most of us, probably there aren't even leaves that are the same color as our hair, but it's going to be a cool nature-inspired hairdo for the person you're drawing, whether that's you or someone else. All right, so I'm all done. I've completed my leaf hair self-portrait. So there you go. I did cut some of the leaves to fit better, so I didn't always use the whole leaf shape. So these that are up at the top, they had some pointy bits that I didn't really want sticking out of my head, so I cut those, and I trimmed some of the side ones so they wouldn't cover the face of my self-portrait. So you can like cut the leaves up if you want to or feel like you need to, but really it's your art to get as creative with as you would like. So you can use leaves. If you have any flowers too, you can use those. I didn't really have any flowers in my garden because it's autumn or fall, so not too many things blooming. But yeah, if you have any flowers, you can add those too. So here's an unbelievable self-portrait. So that is our first project. Now our second one is going to be similar. We're using leaves to make art on paper, but instead of gluing the leaves on, we're using what is called negative space. And negative space might be a new idea you haven't heard before. So I'm going to quickly try to explain it. So I'll put my self-portrait off to the side. So when we think about drawing something, usually we're drawing something with positive space. So if I'm drawing a circle, usually I draw the circle and I color it in, and that's how you know that it's a circle. So that circle is positive. It's the thing that you drew. With negative space, you are drawing everything around the circle. So not actually the circle itself, but by coloring everything around, you still see the circle. So I'll try to demonstrate this. So I've got this paper. And try to use a nice dark color so it's easy to see. So here's a circle on this side, and I'm going to color this in. So there I have a circle on this side, positive space. I colored in the circle. So on this other side, it's going to do the same thing. So instead of drawing in the circle, I'm going to color everything around the circle. So this is a circle positive space, and then this is the circle negative space. So you did draw the circle first, but what you're going to be doing is making negative space leaves. So putting the leaf down, coloring or painting or drawing around it, and then when you take the leaf away, it's still going to have that nice leaf shape, but instead of the leaf being the color, everything else is going to be the color. Oops. And then the leaf is going to be that white blank negative space that's left behind. For this negative space leaf art, you'll also need paper. And again, depending what you're using, you can use printer paper. If you're using paint, it's a little better to do a thicker paper. I'll just do a printer paper for this one to show you. It's just regular paper. And then you need leaves, and you need something to draw around or color in around the leaves, which could be colored pencils or markers or crayons or paint. So again, whatever you have that you like to use, go ahead and use that. I'm going to use markers just to show you. And then it's good to have some tape as well, so that you can tape the leaves down, and then when you're done, you can carefully peel that away, and then it'll just leave that leaf shape behind. So again, I've got some different size and shape leaves. And if you want, when you're creating this shape, you could try to create something like an animal with the leaves, so that that space that's left behind makes a shape of something. But what I'm just going to do is create a design. So and kind of, I usually play around with it a little bit first before I end up taping things down, just so that I don't, so I'm able to move things around as I'm still kind of planning it out. So this one's a cool looking leaf, kind of hard to tape down, so we'll see if I end up using that. All right, so I've come up with a design that I'm pretty happy with. I'm going to tape these down, and if you have blue, like painter's tape, that will also work because you are going to be peeling it away. So what I'm going to do just to show you is take all of these leaves off but one, just to show you kind of what you can do with it. Different ways that you can create negative space. So I'll actually take all these off. And I'm going to tape this guy down. So there's no rule about how to create negative space with your art. So again, you can be really creative with it, but I'm going to show you a couple ways that I use. And really the only thing that you need to keep in mind is that you want to have a lot of color right around the edge, so that when you take that leaf away, there's a really crisp line that shows where the leaf was between the negative space and that color that you're adding. And you can, if you're doing paint, you can just do brush strokes. If you're using something like markers, so this one, you can do, this is like a marker version of a brush stroke. So kind of lines coming out. So that's one way, but if you do this, if I start taking that away, I'm not sure if you can see from here. So you can see that leaf shape already, but the more lines I add and the closer together they are, the more you'll be able to see that leaf shape. So I would probably do it with a couple more colors, just going through. And it's almost like little sunbursts coming off of here. And again, I'm using markers. You could do this with crayons, colored pencils, paint, really anything. Do one more. Okay, so I've gotten that. That's pretty well colored around the leaf. So now I'm going to take the leaf away and then carefully peel that tape off. So now what I'm left with is this leaf, and you can tell that that's a leaf shape. Even though I didn't actually draw the leaf, color in the leaf, it's just this kind of blank space left behind that makes the shape. And actually, if you look up here, if I put a few more lines up at the top, you'd be able to see the point of the leaf better. So the more of the color that you add, the clearer your leaf shape will be. So that's doing like sunbursts or rays. If you want to do something else, another way to do it is still tape down the leaf. And really this just makes it so that the leaf isn't moving around as you are drawing the color in. So you don't have to worry about holding the leaf while you're also doing all those other things. So I'll put this one here. So another thing you can do is doing dots, and that is going to take longer. And so when you're doing the dots, it's the same idea. You want to have a lot really close to the edge. That's going to create the outline. And then as you move out away from the leaf, you can have fewer and just kind of do random. So I'll do that a little more. So again, I first go along the edge of it just to get that outline. And then once you've got that, then you can add them around. We'll do a couple more colors and then check back in. All right, so I've added a lot of dots. You can kind of see that. And if you want to double check if you have enough before you actually peel it away, you can sort of lift the leaf. And if you can still see that shape, you're good to go. So I'm going to peel this one off. And then the tape. And if you do it one leaf at a time like this, you can actually reuse the same leaf more than once. So if you don't have a lot of leaves, or if you have one that's a really cool shape that you like, you can do it and make kind of a pattern. So those are two ways you can create negative space. So with both of them, you can see that that blank space left behind is the leaf shape. And then the color around it is what gives that shape, even though it's a blank space. And so we've got a couple different techniques with lines or with dots. If you think of another way, go ahead and do that. If you have stamps, even you could do stamps around it. So it's really up to you and what you want to create with it. If you make these and you post them on social media, we would love for you to tag Rancho Los Cerritos for Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And you can use the hashtag RLC Creation Station. And I would love to see the different things that you create. I'm sure you'll come up with really amazing art that's very unique and creative. We'll have another creation station the first Saturday of December, so I hope to see you back. And thank you so much for joining me for this creation station to celebrate unbelievable autumn. Thanks, everyone.